Picture this. You are lying on a thin floor mat in a two-room mud brick house in rural Uttar Pradesh, India. It's the summer of 1892. The temperature outside is 106 degrees Fahrenheit, and inside, even hotter. The small ceiling fan stirs the air, but barely cools your sweat-drenched body. Beside you, your husband lies still, his hand brushing yours lightly. That brief contact, that silent acknowledgement of love, is interrupted by the sharp cry of your infant daughter in the next room, where your mother-in-law rocks her to sleep with a fan made of dried palm leaves. On the opposite side, your unmarried brother-in-law snores into his pillow. Just beyond the wall, a pair of goats shift in their pen, chewing loudly. This is intimacy in 19th century India. It is not found behind locked doors or in private bedrooms, because privacy, as we imagine today, simply didn't exist. Families lived together in tight quarters, often 3 generations under one roof. A single charpai or wooden bed might be shared by a couple and child, while elders slept on mats near the door, and younger siblings claimed any leftover space on the floor. Before we delve into the clever, tender, and sometimes desperate ways couples carved out intimacy in this world, if you're fascinated by forgotten corners of human history, tap that like button and subscribe for more. Also, tell us in the comments, where in the world are you listening from? It's incredible that across time and continents, we're rediscovering these lives together. Back to our story. This 2-room house serves as kitchen, bedroom, storeroom, and nursery all in one. The outer room is where guests are received and children study by lantern light. The inner room where you now lie is sacred ground, not because it is private, but because it is shared. Here, boundaries are drawn not with walls, but with whispered agreements, glances, and mutual understanding. The cot creaks as your husband shifts slightly, inching closer. A mosquito whines near your ear. You hold your breath, straining to hear if anyone else is still awake. Somehow, within these tight quarters, couples fell in love, had children, and built entire lifetimes together, stealing moments not behind doors, but behind distractions. The architecture of intimacy had to be reinvented. Married couples developed an entire secret language of gestures and rhythms, where a glance might mean wait until the fire burns low, and a remark like, "I'll check on the rice in the storeroom," signaled a 5-minute tryst away from watchful eyes. And there were always eyes. A daughter sleeping between you, a grandmother mumbling prayers in the corner, a cousin passing through on her way to the water pot. There was no locking a door. Most homes had none. Yet even amid these layers of humanity, desire did not vanish. It adapted, as did the people. In this world, the sound of grinding grain or the cover of an afternoon nap could become an ally. The thin curtain of sari strung across the room, the shelter of dusk when the lanterns were not yet lit. These moments offered brief, fragile sanctuaries. Here, in the furnace of obligation, expectation, and noise, intimacy wasn't stolen. It was forged. In the next chapter, we'll explore how seasons, religion, and the rhythm of labor shape the possibilities and impossibilities of love in multi-generational homes. In the world of joint families, time itself becomes a player in the drama of intimacy, both ally and obstacle. In India, the seasons do not merely change the weather. They dictate when people wake, when they sleep, how they eat, and, most importantly, when couples might find each other. Take summer, for instance. The heat is punishing. Even the walls radiate warmth long after sunset. Families sleep outdoors under stars, lined up in neat rows on woven cots. Children laugh as they fall asleep under moonlight. Parents, too, lie out in the open. There is no room for secrets, just shared breath and quiet endurance. But within that discomfort, some lovers grow closer. A shared water pot, a touch while fanning each other, a whispered joke to break the stillness. These aren't just gestures, they are lifelines. In a place where sweat dampens skin and space is communal, intimacy comes not from touch, but from knowing glances, stolen sips from the same cup, and the fleeting brush of fingers while untangling clothes from a line. The monsoon, however, is different. When the rains come, so do the excuses. Rice needs to be checked in the storage bin. Clothes must be hurriedly brought in from the courtyard. The outer shed leaks. Someone must fix it. These moments create perfect shadows for quick connections. The loud clatter of rain on tin, the muffled thunder, the hush of the world turning inward, all of it gives couples a rare moment where noise finally protects them. But just as quickly, the harvest season arrives, and with it, exhaustion. Dawn begins with labor in the fields, and night ends with aching bones. Every hand is needed, every step counted. Even if a couple might want to steal away into the sugarcane fields, tall and concealing, they must also be cautious. A wrong step can invite scandal. A careless word could bring shame. For every possibility, there is a price. Then comes winter, the season of stillness. People move indoors, curling under layers of cotton and wool. Families sleep huddled together for warmth. This is a time when the simplest of acts, sharing body heat, becomes both survival tactic and a whispered invitation. Couples perfect the art of communicating in silence. A shift in breathing, a subtle turn, a hand beneath the blanket. These are not grand gestures, but they speak louder than any words. The cycle of seasons also mirrors the cycle of desire and denial. The Hindu calendar imposes its own sacred rhythms. Certain months, festivals, and fasting days during which sexual relations are discouraged or forbidden. During Navratri, couples abstain. During Karva Chauth, wives fast for their husband's health, but often break that fast was stolen. Sacred bite fed hand to mouth in private. Desire becomes not just physical, but spiritual. Intimacy, when granted, feels earned, precious, holy. Religion both restricts and reinforces closeness. In many homes, morning prayer rituals require couples to bathe and sit side by side before a small flame. While they chant mantras, their knees sometimes touch. Their eyes meet across incense smoke. The divine and the romantic blur. In this world, longing isn't frustration. It's a form of devotion. And so, with time as both tyrant and teacher, couples learn to wait, to watch, to want quietly. In a world where the walls had ears, and sometimes no walls at all, speech was a luxury couples couldn't afford. Every glance had to carry a message. Every gesture became a signal. Love in a joint household wasn't declared aloud. It was built slowly and secretly in the spaces between the words. The day began like every other. The women gathered near the clay stove, grinding spices, rolling dough. The men sat beneath the neem tree, sipping chai and discussing politics. Children ran barefoot through courtyards, chasing each other with wet towels. And amidst all this, the glance. A wife might pass her husband a metal cup of buttermilk, her fingers brushing his. He wouldn't flinch. He'd simply lift it, drink slowly, and place it near the water jug. That was a signal. Later that day, she'd find an excuse to go refill that same jug. And waiting just a few feet away, behind the curtain dividing the cow shed from the kitchen, he would pause his chores. Perhaps say nothing. Perhaps only touch her wrist. A moment, a breath, then they'd part again. That's all they needed. Desire lived in the quiet choreography of daily life. If a husband adjusted his turban thrice before leaving for the fields, it wasn't vanity. It was code. It meant, come find me before sunset. If a wife tied her sari in a slightly different way, looser, softer folds, it meant, I'm ready, if you are. The shared rituals of household work created opportunities. He'd help her carry pots of water from the well. Each step taken in rhythm, bodies close but never touching. She'd offer him a spoonful of curry before dinner, an act that looked like tasting for salt, but meant much more. In families where even meals were shared on the floor, side by side, a shift in sitting position could say, tonight, if the children sleep early. Sometimes, intimacy wasn't physical at all. It was a promise of physicality, whispered through cues only the two of them understood. But it wasn't always easy. Sometimes messages were missed, a signal unreturned, a plan interrupted by an unexpected guest or a crying child. That longing would sit between them all evening like unshed tears. But even then, there was comfort in the effort. The language itself was proof of love, and there were allies. Younger siblings learned early not to ask questions. Grandmothers, wise with age, sometimes turned their eyes away on purpose. Even mothers-in-law, stern as they appeared, would sometimes mention, "He's been working hard lately. You should rub some oil on his back tonight." That was her way of giving permission. There was a secret sisterhood of women, mothers, aunts, midwives, who passed down the unspoken rules of this hidden language. Don't knock loudly if the curtain is drawn. Take the baby to the courtyard after dinner. Keep the lamp dim when you bring the milk. And so, couples developed entire romances without conversation. A lifetime of gestures, rituals, near touches. They weren't just learning how to love in silence. They were learning how to speak without being heard, how to make love through looks, build intimacy through timing, and sustain passion in public. In the hush of night, when the house finally quiets and the last oil lamp flickers low, a woman rests her swollen belly on a thin mattress, the weight of her unborn child pressing against her spine. Her husband lies nearby, separated only by their child curled between them, an invisible wall of custom, caution, and expectation. Pregnancy in a joint family household is not just a condition, it's a shift in status. A woman becomes sacred, scrutinized, and silenced. In many Indian homes, once a woman shows visible signs of pregnancy, intimacy is expected to stop, not just by religious teachings, but by family belief. It's not good for the baby, her mother-in-law whispers. The goddess watches during these months. But desire doesn't vanish just because the belly swells. In fact, many couples find themselves closer during this time, bonded by vulnerability, tenderness, and shared anticipation. Still, they must walk carefully. It's here the midwife becomes more than a healer. She becomes a confidant. Older than most women in the village, she has seen everything. She knows when it's safe to try, what herbs can ease pain, and what to say when no one else will listen. Often, she is the only person with whom the woman can speak freely. She's not sleeping well. The husband might tell the midwife casually one afternoon, "She misses you." The midwife replies, pouring tea slowly. Nothing more is said, but everything is understood. After childbirth, the rules shift again. The woman is now a mother, but also someone in mourning the loss of her own space, her rest, her freedom. For 40 days, she is expected to stay indoors. No touch from her husband. No shared meals. No normalcy. But again, reality bends beneath longing. A touch on the shoulder as she nurses. A whispered, "Thank you," when she hands him a swaddled infant. A brief, brave moment at midnight when the baby finally sleeps and no one is awake to see them lean close, just for a minute, and remember that before they were parents, they were lovers. Some couples find a rebirth in this time. They talk more, quietly, softly, in the early hours. They see each other with new eyes, reshaped by fear, pride, and exhaustion. Some, however, drift. In families with too many opinions, a new mother is often guarded fiercely. Sleep with the baby? Elders insist. He can sleep with his brother for a while. The cot becomes a cradle, and the couple is left to navigate distance, physical and emotional. But they are not powerless. They adapt. Some husbands wake early just to sip tea with their wives before others rise. Some wives sneak small letters into their husband's shirt pocket before he goes to market. And sometimes late at night, when the baby is finished feeding and the grandmother's snores rise from the next room, they reach for each other in silence, knowing full well they might be heard, but choosing closeness anyway. Because in a house full of people, with no locks, no privacy, and no permission, the only thing stronger than scrutiny is quiet courage. Children are a blessing, but in a house where space is limited and walls are thin, they also become the single greatest obstacle to privacy. In a typical rural home of the 19th century, children don't get their own room. In fact, no one does. A single sleeping space, perhaps a raised wooden charpai or a flattened cotton mat, holds not just husband and wife, but often 2, 3, even 4 children, depending on age and season. A toddler kicks in his sleep. An older child clings to his mother. An infant wakes every 2 hours, crying for milk. And yet, despite this constant presence, couples still find ways to be together. It's not about moving bodies. It's about moving minds. Parents develop a sixth sense, a shared rhythm. They learn which nights the children sleep deeply after long days in the sun. They know how to turn slowly, gently, never waking a child. How to create moments inside the margins. A kiss on the shoulder, a slow caress beneath the blanket, a silent embrace that says, I still see you. But often, intimacy becomes less about sex and more about belonging. In a place where you are rarely alone, love shifts from the physical to the habitual. A husband takes the baby in his arms, so the wife can stretch her aching back. A wife saves the last warm roti and hands it to her husband with a smile. No one says I love you, but no one needs to. Still, the need for physical connection never dies. That's where rituals help. When guests visit and the younger children are sent to sleep with cousins, couples treasure those rare nights as small festivals of their own. When there's a village wedding and half the family attends, those left behind savor the stillness. Even community rituals can become code. A wife might join her husband in the fields on Rocky Day, under the guise of tying a ceremonial thread for protection, only to spend an hour sitting close, away from the house, beneath a mango tree. A husband might volunteer to help clean the rice barn during harvest season, knowing his wife will follow with fresh water. In many homes, there's a curtain, a simple cotton drape strung across bamboo poles. It's not thick, it doesn't block sound, but it's respected. When the curtain is drawn, most family members know not to enter unless urgent. That threadbare cloth becomes a sacred veil. Behind it, husbands and wives reconnect in hushed tones, through shared silence or the soft shifting of fabric on skin. No one knocks. No one comments the next morning. This unspoken respect is a communal compromise, a way for families to allow love without acknowledging it out loud. Because in these houses, privacy isn't a right, it's a favor. And intimacy isn't expected. It's earned, protected, and remembered. Time passes. Children grow. The house grows noisier, then quieter. One day, you wake up not beside your lover, but beside your grandchildren. Your body aches. Your husband now sleeps on the other side of the room, perhaps sharing a cot with a visiting cousin or a snoring grandson. And yet, the bond has never been stronger. In the early years, love burned in stolen moments. In middle age, it glowed quietly, hidden behind responsibilities. But in old age, it settles like embers that refuse to die, glowing in the dark. By now, you and your husband speak without words. A sideways glance across the courtyard says, take your medicine. The way he folds your shawl each morning says, I'm still watching out for you. Intimacy in later years becomes a language of memory. The way he still peels mango the way you like it. The way you massage his joints with mustard oil, grumbling about the smell. The way you laugh, low and soft, when he retells a joke you've heard 1,000 times. You both remember the younger days. Nights when you held each other in secret, beneath mosquito nets and thin quilts. Mornings after, pretending nothing had happened as you swept the floor or fetched water. Moments in the cow shed, the rice fields, or beneath the mango trees, when love had to be quick, quiet, and careful. And you smile, because you know now, you need privacy to be close. You only needed courage. Even grief, which visits every household, has only made your love deeper. When you lost your first child, he sat beside you all night without speaking. When his mother passed, you brewed tulsi tea and stood guard while you wept in the fields. In a house where everyone always sees everything, it was these unseen acts that mattered most. Now, when the grandchildren ask why you still sit so close on the veranda, you just shrug. They won't understand yet. But one day they might. Because in the great, loud orchestra of joint family life, love must learn to play the quiet notes. It is not about fireworks. It is about consistency. Not about privacy, but protection of sacred time, of tender silence, of shared burdens. And when the fire dies down at the end of the night, and your old bones settle into the mattress once more, your husband's hand finds yours under the blanket. Rough, familiar, still reaching. In that moment, you remember, intimacy was never about locked doors. It was about choosing each other again and again, in the middle of everything.